Well, we're here to do a little walkabout. Walkabout is a phrase they used in Australia when they wanted to go do some traveling.
What's your name, sir, by the way?
My name,
Yeah.
my actual name,
Yeah.
Terry.
Oh, no. Not the one you use traveling.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. Oh, Bill Burkhardt
Yeah.
Finch was our aliases. If we ever got in trouble. I don't know how that got in there, but. So, well, anyway, back in the spring of '73, would have been. Easter vacation. I called Jim. I was at Iowa State. Had a few more months to go before I graduated. Jim was in UNI. Had a few more months before he graduated, and his brother John was in Iowa. And I said, "Why don't you guys come over?" And Jim says, "Well, what do you plan on doing when you graduate?" And I said, "Well, this is what my plans are. Why don't you come over and I'll tell you about it." So they came in, we sit down on the couch, and I go over to the encyclopedia and I pull out an encyclopedia that tells you how long ago it was. And I showed on this map what my thoughts were. The thing you got to understand about us, none of us, we were all small town Iowa boys, probably had left the state of Iowa twice in our whole life, had never flown before in our whole life. We started out with $600, a one-way ticket to Australia, and an old '67 Ford that had 97,000 miles on it. And that's what we headed out for, leaving Traer, Iowa.
That's it.
As I looking at October the 9th, 1973 is when we would have left. Just so happened I found this diary, and I'm just going to read just a little quick snippet of it, of what my thoughts were the night before we leave. Many mixed emotions at this time. I'm really ready to go. I know I'll miss the area and the people in general, but besides my family, I doubt there's anybody that I won't be able to replace with new friendships. I know the trip won't be all that colorful or the excitement that many people see from their easy chair, but will at times get to be a real hassle. I hope I'll be able to stay a couple years, but if the Baylor starts going and Dad needs help, I would feel a privilege to come back and promote it. However, it'd be his, and it's time I can see what I can do on my own. I hope Christ is with us, and I'm looking forward to a joyful homecoming. Anyway, so we headed west, and spent a little time traveling, seeing some friends as we were going. Got out to Colorado, and we had a high school friend out there, and we got there, and next thing you know, we go up the mountains, and there's a construction site, and said, "Hey, you guys looking for a job?" Or I said, "We're looking for a job." And they said, "Well, here's 2 chainsaws. Go cut that deal." So we stayed there for about 2 weeks in Colorado. We put some money together, and from there we continued to head west.
We were big and strong then.
Yeah, that's right. So we could do it, and we headed west. Got to
California.
I think we just went to California. I think from that point, stayed with Tiller.
Noreen.
Yeah, Noreen.
McGraw.
Some friends
Mother.
and just kind of did some tourist things there. Went to all the tourist things you do. We headed up to Canada, up to Victoria, and spent some time up there, and then down to Mexico, and did just again basically a lot of tourist stuff.
I remember we went to Canada. They offered us jobs as lumberjacks, but you had to buy these special boots that were like $100 and some. And that was like $1 million to us, so
Yeah,
we didn't take it.
So anyway, so that's how we started out, getting to the States, and then we from there we headed to Hawaii, and quite fortunate. It was so nice get to Honolulu, and my sister's there with their little kids meeting us. So on our first flight that we got to, we were able to have somebody meet us at the airport. And again, we were extremely lucky on this trip. We landed, we go to their place, we clean up, we're waiting for Greg to get back from work. There's a couple bikes there. Jim and I grabbed on the bikes just to loosen up. Go to a construction site. It is quitting time. We pulled up in there, and they said, "Well, boys, be here tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And you'll make $6 an hour," which is a big deal. So we worked framing, construction, at that time. Then from there we went to Fiji. And
This was kind of your first real taste of a country where people look different and speak different and stuff, I guess.
And yeah, nobody there to greet you.
Yeah.
So you get off the airport and away you go. And but that was getting basically kind of a tourist deal. We were there 2 or 3 days or something like that, which is good because it was a brand new experience for us, you know. And then we were there, and then from there we went to New Zealand.
New Zealand's one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and it's condensed. You know, we could be on the beach in the morning and climb a glacier in the afternoon. So we spent a month or 2
6
there.
weeks there. I was looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
Yeah, and so that was again a really good experience. We knew that when we were traveling that there would only be so many places we could work because of the language. And we thought we might be able to work in New Zealand, but the pay was really not very good and you had to have work permits. So we just, moved on and
Went to Australia.
left there, got to Sydney and
From Sydney, Terry got a job right away.
Yeah,
Basically, he had a teaching degree in a town, Bega.
The thing I will still remember, I remember this like it was yesterday. It was at night, we were at King's Cross in Sydney. We had just landed. We didn't have any more airline tickets to go anyplace. We didn't have enough money to get back home. And we didn't know one person in a country as big as the United States. And it was just
And on the other side of the world.
it was just like, whoa, that really, really hit home at that time of night. And luckily, everything still went well. And as Jim said, I was able to get a job teaching in a little town about 250, 300 miles south of Sydney. Jim stayed in Sydney and worked as an office assistant.
I had a business degree, so I went every place I knew in Sydney, and I couldn't get a job, and just to make money, I worked in a used car lot for a while, cleaning cars and doing odds and ends, and if all else fails, they had one McDonald's in Sydney at that time. I'll go work there. So I'm out of money. I go to there, fill out the deal, and the guy says, "Well, we can't hire you, mate." I go, "Why not? You have a college degree. We can't pay you that much." But kept knocking on doors. Eventually, I became the office manager for Spur Rand for the Southeast Pacific down there in a big high-rise building. So did that for almost a year.
So it was two complete different experiences. Jim lived in a city of 3 million people, and I lived in a city of about 300 people. And
We probably didn't see each other for 10,
for
12 months.
yeah,
almost.
for most
Is that right?
Yeah, and so it was good. When I first got there, it was kind of like the people were a little bit cold, I thought, to me, and come to find out that there was a couple teachers there from the States before that were, everything. All they could do is just talk about how great the United States was. So, but I just had a wonderful experience there. I loved it. I taught in the daytime, and at night I worked at a pub, so I got to see the whole lifestyle of the Australian people, and took part in athletics in the schools, with the teachers, the adults, and played rugby on the school town team, and really developed some really good friendships. So anyway, Australia was really good. Everything from teaching school to hunting roos and being in the ag sector and just out in the wild.
When you guys decided to do this, what was the reaction of your folks or family or friends?
Well, my folks, I told them what are you doing after you graduate here? Me and Terry, we're going to Australia. Yeah, sure. I don't think they even knew where Australia was, but that went on as we prepared for several months before they finally figured out, You are going to Australia.
It was a little different time than it is today. You know, I mean, parents, you know, you were there to take care of yourself. You know, you're an adult, and it wasn't like today where everybody hovers over their kids until they're 40. You know, and so I think that's a little bit of a different deal too. You know.
Yeah, they were able to let loose
They just let
a lot
loose, so.
sooner.
Yeah.
What
back
was
then.
correspondence like back with your folks or family?
I don't think I talked to my folks on the phone. Maybe once or twice a year.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Probably once. Send them a letter every so many months. They, you know, there's months they didn't have any idea what country we're in, what matter, what part. Nobody in the world did except us.
One of the things I do know that happened, that if I wrote a letter, or Jim wrote a letter, both our mothers, they were on the phone immediately talking to the other one, you know, letting them know what's going on, you know. So.
And I know you're all humble, but what does that take for a 21-year-old kid to say, I'm going to do this?
As I often say, it takes more guts than brains.
So after we worked for a while, Tom Capriva met us. He was working at John Deere and came over and met us. And then from there, Jim, why don't you kind of talk about what we bought, what we traveled in, and what we did?
We bought what was called a Commer van, which is a British van, I think, piece of junk. And we took off up the east coast of Australia, called the Gold Coast. Went up to Townsville. And Terry and I, we'd go out snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. You wouldn't see anybody for days going that. And then we went over, we were going to go to Darwin, which is northern side of Australia. And what you forget is north is warm, south is cold. A hurricane destroyed that, or cyclone, so we couldn't get there. So we drove straight south, right through the middle of Australia. What people don't realize, Australia is about the same size as the continental United States, but there was only one road that went through it north-south, and 3/4 of that was dirt. And it's all this red scrub brush dirt and stuff. We'd drive through there, pull over at night, and within an hour you'd have Aborigines coming up and trying to sell you shit or something.
Wow.
It was, and what we were going for out there to get to the middle is what they call Ayers Rock.
Ayers Rock's the biggest monolith in the world. If you've seen pictures of it, that big red rock in the middle of Australia. Well, it's more than a rock, but so we got there and we climbed it. Signed our names at the top, which you can't do that anymore.
No.
It's sacred to the Aborigines now. And then went to a place called Alice Springs in the middle of the outback, which is well known for opals. 90% of the opals in the world come from Australia. 90% of them come from the area of Alice Springs. Of course, we didn't find any.
One of the stories I remember, one of the things I remember about that travel is two things I remember. One was you look on a map and you'd say, okay, it's about 4 hours to this next town, and there's a pretty big dot on the map. So we think, well, okay, we'll get there. So we pull into this town.
And they get
Supposed to be a big town. What there was a bar and a gas station. That's in a hotel. That's all there was that was there. And so every place, anytime you get a chance to fill up with petrol, what they called it, you definitely filled up. It doesn't make any difference. You always filled up. So we're sitting there at this hotel. They call them motels, but they're bars and hotels. We're sitting there at that hotel getting a beer. All of a sudden, here comes this big pig about 300 pounds running inside the bar, flops down right there in the bar, and the barmaid comes over there and says, "Arnold, you know you're not supposed to be in here till 5 o'clock. Now get on out of here." so the pig goes running on out of there, and I wish I could have this picture. I got a picture in my head. I hopefully have the picture someplace. Picture of Tom laying down beside that pig with his
Cowboy hat.
Aussie hat on
Yeah.
right beside it. So it was so anyway. The other thing I got, because it really was an interesting deal for me, is that on this Commer van we had a rack on top, so we slept out on top at night, and I can still remember out there in the middle of the outback, so dark, no lights, looking up at the stars, and it's just like the most amazing sight in the world. There's just billions and billions and billions of stars that you never see when you're here.
We're
And of course,
hundreds of miles away from
and the
nearest
Southern
light.
Cross, was you see the Southern Cross there, and I remember this distinctly. Is like Tom and I were up top. I think Jim, you actually slept inside there, and he says, "Why don't you guys be quiet?" And I was thinking, God, here we are in the middle of the night looking at stars. And I think about that. Oh my God, I'm glad I stayed up to look around. Because it's just something I'll never get to Ayers Rock again and be out there and stuff. But anyway, we got to Perth.
I knew a person that knew some people in Perth, and they didn't know us from Squat Diddle. Got hold of them. Everybody's so friendly. Tell them our story. Come on in. We stayed with them for a couple days. We're at Perth, and from there we flew to Singapore.
Flew to Singapore. Then that's
When Pete
that's
came
when Pete was in the Peace Corps,
over here.
and somehow we communicated with him and said, "Why don't you travel with us? Meet us in Singapore at the American Embassy on June 10th or whatever the date is."
2:00 in the afternoon.
And so he's clear across one side and we're clear across here. No way to communicate. We both got delayed actually getting to the American Embassy, and we come into when we both got there on Monday morning. I still remember this distinctly because we got there on the weekend and we were a week late thinking, where's Pete at? We walked to the American Embassy at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's Pete right there where he's supposed to be. He got delayed a week and we got delayed a week.
I don't think I made it up to the front door, and there you were.
Yeah.
From Singapore, we took a private taxi cab, whatever they call it, up to
A crazy driver
Oh,
Mercedes.
yeah, Jesus.
Remember that, Pete?
Oh, I'll never forget
Should have
that.
killed us. To Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And then from there we took a train all the way to Bangkok, which was a little nervy. That's up the neck of Thailand and that was 75 probably during the evacuation of Vietnam. And I remember they have had sporadic guerrilla attacks on that train, but and then we got to Bangkok. And then we drove north to Chiang Mai, which is relatively well known. And then from there, being the explorers we are, those three took off to Bosang, to this smaller town. And we always go as far as public transportation would possibly take us. And I went the other way by myself to a place called Chankopang. And there I get in this small town, and it's the huts up on stilts and stuff, and nobody's there. There's nobody in town, but I hear a noise outside, so I walk through the town, and on the outskirts, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people surrounding this field that's about twice as big as a football field, and a big pagoda in the middle. And I'm walking around, and people are looking at me strangely. And finally this guy comes up to me, Thai, and says, I've been educated in Australia, I can speak English. I go, what's going on here? And he says, well, it's a combination of the burning of the monk. The head monk has died, and this is the culmination of it, and that's his body in the pagoda in the center. So all day I spent, here's the police chief, here's the mayor, here's this. They'd walk me out in the center of that field, and they'd stand up there just sober-faced, take my picture with them, and then I'd have to get the next group. And at the end, they light a wire. There's wire around the whole thing. They light a rocket that goes, hits it, and burns it up.
Cremation of
Wow,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of that.
And then this guy that was talking to me said, well, bring your buddies back. We'll take an elephant caravan from here to Cambodia, and you can see all that. And not much danger from tigers. It's more other wild elephants are the biggest problem. So went back and talked to the boys, and we decided to pass. I wanted to go to Mongolia, and I got overridden, thank God, and we went to Nepal and flew to Kathmandu and took the Royal Nepalese Airline, which had 2 jets. So we're flying around Mount Everest, and you walk in the cockpit and stand there and look at it for a while and stuff. And we land in Kathmandu, spend some time there, then go to a town called Pokhara, Nepal, up in the mountains in the Himalayas.
Foothills of Mount Everest,
Yeah,
basically.
Right.
and had a great experience there. We flew a side flight, I think, to Pokhara, grass one way, and they come down and go, and then keep going. I go, what? Why didn't we land? Well, they got to buzz it first to get the cattle off the landing field. Anyway, we took a train or flew from Pokhara, Nepal to Patna, India. And India's a different experience for us. And we get there, and we're supposed to then catch another train to go to New Delhi. And everything's late. And we're sitting there forever. It's just thousands of people huddled around the train station and stuff, and we're bored. When we started doing card tricks and showing up, they couldn't say, how do you do that? And finally we hear the train coming, and the whole crowd just...
Was this?
Go ahead.
No, I just want to add. I mean, this isn't like 1 or 2 people watching. All of a sudden, we look up, and there are hundreds of people watching us do card tricks.
Hundreds and hundreds.
Of people
Yeah.
in a semicircle watching us do these card tricks. So,
Yeah, then finally we hear the whistle of the train, and the whole mass stands up, and it's just everybody screaming and hollering, and then crowding onto the railroad tracks, and we go, what the hell? We got reserved tickets, what's the deal? And the guy says, that means nothing in India. If you want your seat, you better get on there.
so that's why I was so glad that Jim was a football player, because he led the pack.
Well,
and
two.
We're out
I
front.
stayed back and watched the luggage.
And we
got a
took
little-
off running to get our seats.
Little flight pack in one hand, and our sleeping bag rolled up with a belt around on the other, and beat our way into the train.
And you gotta
Literally.
understand, the reason there's so much tourists at that time is their wedding season. In their wedding season, they all travel
All right.
to for their weddings, and so that's why there's so
Delhi.
many people. And the trains itself were extremely packed, and there's people on top of the trains, in the trains. And do you
I
remember
don't-
where we sat?
I don't recall any
In that
windows.
little compartment area.
I was up in the
Ups-
luggage
yeah,
compartment. You and
yeah,
I were up in the
I
luggage
was up
compartment
there too.
for most of the night. And then
You can hardly tell it's a train with people hanging over the roof, all in the hallways, hanging out the window. It's just total chaos. But
so we're sitting in this car
And 120 degrees outside.
Yeah. So we're sitting in this cabin of this train, and it's all night. And so we're just as packed as you can be in this whole car. In the morning, I get up, and I get out, walk down through the train. The car beside us, nobody in it. The next car, nobody in it. All of a sudden, I realized the only car that had people in it was ours. And all these Indians wanted to sit there and watch us because they never saw white people before. And so it was
Big
just
white
like,
people.
yeah, we're packed in there. And so we get in there, and finally we just says, get out of here, there's other places to go, And so, but it's just so strange to walk down there and to see that, so.
anyway, just Terry and I made it. We get back, and from Delhi we go to Bombay,
Bombay,
which is now Mumbai.
Mumbai.
Had how'd we could do that? Train, I think, didn't we?
Train, yeah.
Again,
And-
a lot of trains in
And
India.
we took air condition this time. I remember that. It was like, oh, this is nice.
Well, the reason we went to Bombay because somewhere along the past we knew we had to get to Africa, and so we had to find a cheap way to get to Africa.
Yeah, I think way back in Australia, we made correspondence
Yeah.
with Jay Osberger, our high school teacher,
Right.
who has done several missionaries in Kenya, and invited us to stop and see him. And this is months before. So we planned we gotta be in Nairobi by such and such a date, which was several months down the road. So that's why we're timing all this trip to try to get over there. So then we take a steamer.
So we had to find a cheap way to get from
Yeah.
that part of the world to Kenya, and so
Here's Terry's.
SS Karanja.
Karanja, a British ship, steamer. And I still remember it was a 10-day voyage for $110. But that's the cheapest, and we're down in the front, the bowels of the boat up by the stern. And it's as big as a football field, filled with pipes from the floor to ceiling and 2 rows of hammocks hung by chains. And a pot boiling in the far end. And it's just full of Indians and nothing wrong with
Puking,
that.
everybody puking because they were seasick.
Puking and
down.
portholes and
You'd watch these people, these tourists come in, and they have these Hilton Inns and these really nice restaurants or hotels, you know, and you'd see them pull in there from the airport in their limousines, you know, and stuff, and
That's
thinking,
another
well,
good
God,
story.
that's what they see of India, you know, this great deal. We were staying in these shacks there. But we got smart, you know. We learned how to sneak in behind those people. We spent all day in the swimming pools, and you know they
big
wa-
gated community where these fancy hotels are. We're in this hotel where the doors are this high. You had to duck your head to get in there and stuff, and wood, and figured out, well, hell, let's just put on our swim trunks. We didn't have any shorts, towel, and walk right in like we own it. So we did that, and then walked through the lobby, sat down by the pool. I'll have a cocktail and charge it to room 138. And we did that for a while. I said, Terry, we're kind of pushing this. Maybe we should leave.
So that's how we survived India, you know. So from there, then
We took the Karanja to Karachi,
Karachi.
Oh,
Pakistan,
Yeah,
and
that's
we were there for 2 days maybe. But
Yeah, not much over.
my memories of Karachi is I was feeling kind of sinful, raw Catholic, so I decided I'm going to go to church Sunday. And I go to this Catholic church, and the 2 things I remember is the wicker baskets for the donation had metal lids padlocked on top of them with a little slit in it. And then I'm going down to communion, and right in front of the priest, there's 2 rows, and these guys start pushing. Now they're in a fist fight, right? And the priest is trying to break them up in front of communion. I go, okay, I've been to church now, but it's got a ways to go here, maybe. Anyway, from there we took the ship all the way to Mombasa, Kenya.
Right on the coast.
There's Bombay, there's Karachi, and then you take the ship down to here.
Yeah, it was Mombasa.
And you
Not
get in
Honolulu.
Mombasa, get there late, and we took a train from there to Nairobi. Once again, after a month or more of traveling and all these dates, we're gonna meet Jay, the old high school teacher, at the train station in Nairobi on this date at this time, and we're there half an hour, and there he is. So he picked us up and took us to where they were working as missionaries. And then we go on safaris by ourselves, and here and there, he'd tell us where to go and all that. So
And
we
where
went-
not to go.
and where not to go, yeah. So, so you should climb Mount Kenya. So we go there, and at the base of it is basically a jungle, banana trees and that. And you climb half the day, and you get to a checkpoint with tents and guards, and it's cold now. It's freezing. This is right on the equator, by the way. But they make you stop there and check for bleeding out of the ears and elevation sickness and all that. So we get up there,
Probably the base camp was about, what, 12, 13,000 maybe?
probably. We went up to Point Leilani on Mount Kenya, which I think was 16,000 some feet. And Pete stayed, and the other three of us went up and climbed up that sucker. And we get up there, and Terry, how do you remember our guide?
The guide was taking us up there. He gets to the very top of the deal, and it was supposed to be a leisurely trip. It's a blizzard, it's a snowstorm. We couldn't hardly see in front of our hand in front of our face, you know. And we're all standing there, and the guide is trying to figure out the way to
Where
go,
the hell are we?
Looking this
the way to go
looking
back down. And he said, "Okay, I think this is he's a little native that we could carry, but anyway, to make a long story short,
Interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
When you get to the top, there's a big cross up there.
That's
And
right.
I finally get everybody up there, and I'm taking a picture, and my camera won't work. It's froze.
Oh, no.
So we don't have a picture of it. But
So
anyway,
anyway.
we go down.
So anyway, then we made it back down. The funny story about Tom is that Jim had to help carry the backpack from the base camp up to the mountains where we slept that night. He was so appreciative
The guy.
of Jim carrying that bag that he gave him an extra blanket. Well, instead of giving it to Jim's tent, he gave it to Tom's tent. So Tom ended up having an extra blanket that night. So anyway, that was our
Mountain climbing experience, and,
expedition. So that was in.
He wasn't positive how to get down.
He wasn't positive how to get down, and it was a serious blizzard. You know,
And it's just loose shale rock where you take a step and slide 2 feet and
coming down.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. In fact, the trip coming down was really enjoyable for me because it was just like, as long as you didn't try to stop, you made it down in about. I'm telling you, I don't
Half
think it
the
took.
time.
I don't think it took an hour. I mean, you just
slide
slide
down.
down. So it was. There's certain things you remember in your life. I still remember going down that mountain. So I guess we are in with Jay and Liz and staying at their orphanage, and where basically they took care of children where their parents either worked in the embassy or did some work in Kenya. So
One of our great experiences, I guess, for all of us was our time in Kenya.
and the nice thing about it is, if you like watching wild animals, you get to see these wild animals on safari. You'd see the lions going after the gazelles and killing the zebras.
We did our own safari, by the way.
Yeah.
There was no guided.
We would have no guides or anything. And you'd stay in what they call bandas. Banda is basically a mud hut with the thatched roofs on it. And 300 yards away is the hotel for the rich people, that want to go on safari. But they said, don't walk that at night because a woman did it a couple nights ago and we just found her remains because the lions got her on the way. Oh, okay.
And you'd hear them at night.
You'd shine your light out the window and see eyes and just hear.
Yeah. The Maasai's would
So these weren't for throwing.
tend their cattle, so they'd always carry these along, and they'd be walking along, and we asked him, well, what do you do with that? He says, when you run into lions every once in a while, and when they charge you, you got to time it about right. You stick it in the ground when they jump for you. You got to stab them
They gotta
right in the
tail
chest.
themselves.
Jumps on them and
Kill
the
'em.
lion basically will jump on that, will impale itself,
So
and
I'm glad-
basically the line will be on your body when it dies.
You were out in a little Corolla.
Yeah.
Any close calls?
Just with the elephant with Tom that time, but
Good question. Yeah, well, we go out on these self-led safaris, and we'd take pictures of lions and gazelles and impalas and
Elephant.
Them little dicks, I think that's what they call them.
Yeah,
Them little guys.
Yeah.
I remember those being kind of cute.
Tasty too.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, came upon these elephants. So, of course, these guys with their fancy cameras and my little Instamatic, which I should have threw away, taking pictures, and then there was this one bull elephant that kind of
Well, they always
seemed aggravated.
they always said, not to interrupt you, but
No,
one of
it's
the
all right.
things that Jay said, just be careful if you see an elephant that has a discharge by their ears. It means
They're
are
in musk.
They're in musk,
Oh.
and they're very dangerous.
Oh,
So anyway,
Glands in the head with just fluid running out, and
yeah.
that's what we came
Apparently,
on.
that one we came upon.
Yeah.
Because
Was completely-
he flopped his his
Ears
ears
straight
down,
out.
and his trunk went up that, and he kind of bluffed us a couple times, but then we didn't move. And Tom was driving, and I don't know why he didn't get out of there if he was trying to bluff the elephant or not, but pretty soon I was just yelling at him, "Get this car the heck out of here." And here he was coming, and finally he took off in the nick of time.
we were going
I don't know.
30, and the elephant was going 28. So
We're driving through, and we picked up those Maasai
warriors.
warriors, so to speak, totaled in the red garb and the mud-laden hair and carrying those spears, and we're going some trail through, we didn't know where the hell we were.
Yeah.
And we stop and go, Jambo, which is hello in Swahili. Nataka
Pambe.
Nataka Pambe. Shilingangapi Pambe. Which I need one beer, how much is it? But they had now, we insinuate, you guys want to ride. And they figured that out. So there's 6 of us in that Toyota with 2 Maasai warriors in the back with
Spears sticking
the
out.
windows rolled down, their spears sticking out. They have a strong scent to them, shall I
boy.
say.
You remember they had what they would always carry with their fermented goat milk
Yeah.
Yeah.
that would just
Yeah.
stunk like
Well, that's
fermented goat milk.
yeah.
There was a drink they would make that Jay would tell us about where they, shoot that little dart in the cow's neck and get a goat bladder, fill about half full of blood, half full of milk, and then a touch of cow urine. And then they hang it in a tree for several days, and then you drink it. Coke has nothing to worry about. So we're in Garissa because Jay Osberger, he was a professional photographer, and he's taken some filming of 2 sisters who were nuns in that area, missionary nuns. So we went along, and now we're hungry, so we're walking down the streets of Garissa and going this place. And it's probably 50-foot square. And the only thing they had going was a 50-gallon drum in the corner with a fire underneath it and a rope hanging in it. And Jay speaks his Swahili, and we'll have something to eat. Okay. So they pull the rope up, and there's a goat hanging on it. And they start cutting off some stuff and bring it to us. And, oh, they got rice too. There's pepper on my rice. No, that ain't pepper. So we tried to eat the boiled goat on the rope, and just, we couldn't eat it. And our table's surrounded by about a dozen
Little kids.
Yeah.
little kids with
Yeah.
eyes that big just staring at us. So we get up and about ready to throw up, and as soon as we left, they just dived on the table and ate it all. But, boiled goat on the rope is the worst meal I've ever had. So, Koheri Bawana, which is goodbye in Swahili, boss. On we go, and we're flying to London.
But this is where Pete and Tom left early. You guys didn't fly together, I don't think.
Where
Tom-
did he
Tom-
leave from?
Tom left from Kenya.
Yeah,
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tom left
Okay.
from Kenya, flew to London, and then back home.
yeah. Pete
Oh.
went with us to.
Yeah, we
You-
spent some time
In London,
Yeah.
yeah.
A couple weeks at least.
Yeah.
Or I
And
did.
you remember at that time, I was feeling real sickly. My throat hurt so bad,
Huh.
and I couldn't hardly talk. And I don't want to get sick in Kenya. We get to London, and Terry takes me to a hospital, and we didn't have any money, so it's a Commonwealth nation. We're Canadians, eh? I don't have it on me, eh? So I go in this hospital and I find out it's a teaching hospital. Okay, then they get me behind the curtain. And I still remember laying there. My throat is just swollen up bad. And okay, open the curtain. About 8 people come. A trainer and all these students come in. And now, open your mouth and try not to gag. And he's taping up a scalpel in the meantime, just leaving the little point stick out. Swabs my throat. My tonsils are big as baseballs, pure white. Lances the tonsils, takes his vacuum and sucks all the pus out of them. Then I go in this dorm room, and they give me a shot in the ass of penicillin every 8 hours for 2 days. And then, okay, I'm feeling better now. Terry, get me out of here. They're wondering why I haven't shown him my ID yet. So I get up and we left like 2 o'clock in the morning out of the hospital. That was the end of that.
Yeah, so that was good. It's kind of the same thing, you know.
So-
when I got there, we need, you know, we knew there are certain places you could work, and so I went into the pub. Luckily, you know, I had pub experience, so that was good. And they said, "Well, where are you from?" And I
I
said,
have
"Well,
too,
I'm
but it's
from,
on the other side of the bar.
I'm from Victoria, Canada." Okay, well then you can work here, because if you're from the States, you can't work there.
Yeah.
So I was able to work there for 30 days before they found out I wasn't legal, and so that was another good experience. I mean, nice thing working, you get to know the country, get to know the people,
Yeah.
and so that was good. So I enjoyed London. You know,
Yeah.
did all the
London
tourist,
was nice.
Yeah.
did all the tourist deals there, but also got to know
From
the
there
working
we
people.
went to England, Scotland, Wales, and then went over to Europe. And we're still confused every country we've been to there, but most of it, I think, weren't we?
Yeah.
Never made it to Spain, France, Italy, all those countries.
And it was, you know, you hate to say it, but when we got there, it was just I suppose you could say almost shot. I mean, you know, we were almost touristed out, you know, and
You were comfortable by then after being through Southeast
Yeah.
Asia, India, Africa, and that. Oh shit, this is like being home here.
but
Yeah.
but you know what I remember about Europe, besides England, I enjoyed London, and the other country I really enjoyed was Italy.
Yeah, I
You know,
did too.
you
Italy
know,
was one of my favorites.
You'd go to Italy and you'd be going along in Florence. You'd be going in these little towns. They'd have these statues that would be just out in the middle of nowhere that
that's
nobody
just
even looked at.
Michelangelo did this.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
X amount
Michelangelo
of
did this,
century.
but no one goes to see it because there's so many other ones, you know. And so Italy was nice, you know. And of course, they had wine in every meal, so that was good too. So I don't know. I can't.
Another great adventure Terry and I went on. Pete must have left by then, and John wasn't there yet when we went to the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Oh, you did that time?
Yeah, and at that time it was a
Nice.
communist country.
Yeah.
So we had I don't know how we got it. We get a permit to go for like 48 hours. And we get to the border and on a train, and it's the Russian guys, those machine guns, and German shepherds walking through the train and underneath. And we get to Chesky Romanov,
Yeah.
a little town. What the hell? Try to find out our ancestries. Gutra's like Smith in your country. There's so many.
Oh.
You talk about how lucky we were in our travels. Again, we were supposed to meet John, Jim's brother, in I'm gonna say maybe Amsterdam. I think it was
something
Amsterdam.
like
I think it was Amsterdam. So we were at a hostel. In the morning, I go out in the common sink or the common areas to brush my teeth, and I'm over there, and I'm feeling like somebody is staring at me. And I'm just brushing my teeth with my head down, and all of a sudden, I look over there. There's his brother, right, and 2 sinks away from me, staring at me.
But I haven't seen in 2 years.
Yeah. So that was amazing. Again, how lucky we were in that deal. So, but
And then from there, we went back to the United States, but we drove up to Maine, and we all 3 of us, Terry, me, and my brother, worked at a chicken factory in Penobscot, Maine, loading semis with
frozen chickens.
frozen chickens
Breast-
to get enough money to get back home.
Yeah, we went to Washington D.C. I think, and went to New York. I know I went to New York. I went to Madison Square Garden. I remember that.
Okay.
And then basically made it back home 2.5 years after we started, I guess.
What was the reception for you when you got home?
From our parents or other people, or they had us do a presentation at a hall in Cloutier.
Pretty low key. Pretty
Low key. It
It was-
comprehend, because I remember we go through our story, not this elaborate. Any questions? And the farmer go, so what did their corn crop look like over there? Like, how the hell do I know? What's the big deal?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I do remember this, you know, coming back to the States, it gave us a little bit of time to acclimate to the United States, which you think, oh, why is that a big deal? But I think you recognize that too.
Huge cultural shock.
And
coming
it
back.
was kind of a cultural shock
For me.
for us.
I don't
Yeah.
know about you guys, but
And I felt the same way, and so it was good that we were able to come back to the Eastern United States for a time period, and then we kind of
Assimilate
hung out a
back,
little
yeah.
bit together, you know.
Yeah.
So
I remember getting back home and go, God, there's so much land and spread out here.
yeah,
How big everything was, you know,
yeah.
compared to the rest of the world.
In the Peace Corps, everything was
Sure.
roads, mud roads, and you went 20 mile an hour. But you get home in the U.S. and you're flying. I never forget the first time I got in a vehicle and went down the highway. I was just scared shitless.
Once you got home.
Cars whizzing by like, and I thought, well, this far apart, well, maybe it was just crazy.
When you came back, what was it like the first time you got home?
I thought it was excited to talk to people about all this, you know, and it was hard to relate to them because they had no idea at all about any of this or another country. You know, they've been to Des Moines to the State Fair, and it was hard to relate. And you get a little disappointed, you know, and you're excited,
Yeah.
and you get disappointed. It's hard. It was just hard to explain all of it. But,
Well, I do. I remember walking in the kitchen of the house and thinking, "Oh my God, this looks so small." Because in your mind, you imagine this great big living area and this whole home that you had there. And I was just amazed how small it was, which it wasn't all that small, but that's one thing that I really remember. I thought, well, God, I thought it was bigger than this, you know, because you made your mind think that. And then, you know, I do remember that we got back in the afternoon, and it was kind of like everybody had things to do. And one thing I did, I just went out and walked the whole farm. You know, I just went out and walked the ground, which kind of sounds strange, but that's what I did. You know,
Kind of reattach.
yeah, you know, came back in, and it was kind of a culture shock. You know, I mean, it wasn't like people really didn't want to hear what you did, and so you didn't really talk about it. You know, which is fine. It's no big deal.
No,
but it was you know, there's no question that it altered all of our thoughts and how we lived the rest of our life and the experiences that we had. You know, we had to make it a whole different experience. So
How do you think it affected your outlook going forward in the next few decades?
That's a good question.
well, I think it just you just realized how big the world was and how many different things there were out there to do and change, and you weren't so closed-minded, yeah. You know, be able to go through Asia and Europe and India, countries that were so poor, you know, and just to realize that there's a lot more than just the United States, you know.
Tried to be open to other cultures and people and ways of life. And,
Find it-
yeah, I mean, I think that's really stuck with me.
Yeah, frustrating, you know, people in America piss and moan that, oh, I'm offended and I don't have this right and this right. You need to experience a couple months in some of these countries to see how the rest of the world lives, and should be thankful for all this stuff you got and opportunities. But
Would you do it again if you were going back as a 21?
Well-
Are you glad?
oh yeah, it's the greatest thing I did in my life. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I really do want to say is that if you ever believe in divine intervention, if you believe that there's a plan for you, there's no question that our trip had divine intervention involved. For three guys on Easter break to grab an encyclopedia and to lay out a trip around the world, and then for that trip to follow exactly
Yeah, pretty much
to the
exactly.
trip that I said, for somebody that never traveled, had no money to be able to do it, there had to be something besides us guiding us. And so, you know, we did a lot of work, but we were lucky to get out of the state of Iowa with the money we had.
All right, I think I got it.
All right.
Very good.
You can have it because I'm
Pass.
definitely not the good. Pop or water to
Yeah,
go
I
or
will.
something. Okay. I brought you some nuts and salsa, but that's another